struggling through it. We're going to continue. So I've brought in all my references. Now I'm starting to place them, right? So this is my 30 by 40 by 350 pixel gray tabletop. My image takes up a lot of the middle. That's going to be my final landscape that at the end I crop back down to. That's why I have the guides there. And my first element is the one that's furthest back from my references, and that's my sky. So my sky is good. I don't need to cut anything out of the sky because everything's going to be cut out and placed on top of it. So my next element is this shipwreck. Now this, I can use my move tool and move it down. I can hit Command T. I'm going to shrink it. This goes onto the very back line of my composition. It's about here. And this one gets cut out. So in order to cut it out, I'm going to do what's called rough cutting. Right now it's a smart object. I don't want to change it from a smart object because that means I will always have the highest quality pixels. And the highest quality pixels that come from a Pixabay source are way more than I need. But I have to rasterize it in order to erase away from it, right? To cut it out. So how can I get the best of both worlds? I use my lasso tool and I roughly, like I'm tearing a magazine, an image out of a magazine. Like there's this beautiful Korean pop star and I'm just using my fingertips to tear out their portrait from Tiger Beat, Korea. Just like a magazine. But I want as much overlap as possible. So I want all this water that's at the base, but I know that that sky is not the sky I want, right? So I've just torn it out. Now, instead of hitting delete, because that won't work, because this is a smart object, I am going to hit Command J. Command J makes a duplicate of what I lassoed and puts it on a new layer right on top. So this is what I call rough cutting. So by making a duplicate of the smart object, what did it do? It cut it out loosely with a lot of overlap, and it rasterized it at the same time. So then I just turn off the smart object, and I will keep it in the Photoshop file in case I want to return to it later. But this is what I want. So that on this sky. Later on, maybe I'll even get to it before the end of class today, I'll go through how we can cut out really cleanly and precisely, the sky. But for now, it's just a rough cut. And we're placing it in the composition based on where we have it in our sketch. What's the next thing in my sketch? And again, I can just look down at my sketchbook or look here. It's going to be this shipwreck here. And it's my next layer. Boom. So I'm going to use the move tool, move that in. I'm going to use Command T, kind of shrink and place it while it's still a smart object. And I'm going to extend that horizon. So this is actually something that's really helpful. I have a horizon line established right there. So I could try to match it. But if I do that, Command T, it's going to make my shipwreck kind of too small. So those are things I'll worry about a little bit later. Right now, I want to worry about getting this kind of ship where I want it. And even though it's man-made, because it's a wreck that's at a tilt, I can get away with holding down Shift and doing slight adjustments to it, like making it a little bit narrower. So it kind of fits into the intentions of my sketch a little bit more. And kind of placing it right there. All right. Problem is, that's still a smart object. If I take my sketch away, I need to rough cut this out. So to do that, I use my lasso tool. And I roughly cut around it with a lot of overlap. I'm going to get all of the water I can. Like that. And then how do I rough cut it? Command J. And then turn off the smart object behind. And that rasterized that cutout for me. And even though my sketch might show that it goes there, I might decide that I want it Well, no, I do want it about there, because I want them to kind of interfere with each other a little bit. So it looks like there's lots of shipwrecks in this landscape. Okay, my next element. This is why it's helpful to have that sketchbook. Is, let's do the foreground one. This one. It's my next layer. Going to use my move tool just to move it into place. And then I'm going to Command T and I'm going to stretch it a little bit. So it kind of fills my sketch a little. Okay, so far so good. Now I'm going to rough cut it. Now the problem with this one is this is really what I want. This isn't really what I want. So this one's kind of trickier. I'm going to make a duplicate of it. And then I'm going to transform it, because this is an extreme forced perspective shot. So I am going to play with skew and kind of change that perspective until it works a little bit better with my scene. So we have control of all this, which is something we don't have control of with actual collage, right? I can also tilt the dock a little bit so that it's angling down instead of angling up. Now I'm going to do my rough cut. And my rough cut's going to be interesting for this because the only thing I'm really cutting out is the sky. But I'll also cut off this pole. And all of this. Boom, boom, boom. You are able to navigate around. I know it's a little clunky. And zoom. And add to your selections. So let me get this back where I can access it. Come on. I don't know why it's not responding. There we go. So I've got that part. To add to it, I use my lasso, I hold down Shift. I'm just going to grab the rest. So I want all of that. And now to rough cut it, what do? I hit Command J. And that duplicates it. I turn off the smart object behind. And it can be a good idea. I've been using green, so I'll use green to indicate all of these cutouts that I'm placing. So far, I have 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4 that are making up my image. This one is still from the background, just showing through. So now I need the foreground element that's going to close that gap. That is this one. Nope, I forgot about the rust. That's going to be in the middle. So this one's actually the one I'm going to cut out the most. Just a rough cut. Just all this gunk, and then all the foreground in front of it. That'll be the biggest pain to cut out. And then that's going to go between, that's going to transition from this edge, because it's cropped off, into the next thing I put in, which is this. These rocks. So I'm going to rough cut that, and I know they're all different colors. I'm going to keep the water. Command J. Okay, now I have rough cut and placed, but the thing that's a little unclear is I've lost my little buoy. And it's going to go there. Maybe not. It might be too hard to force it. So much easier with non-man-made stuff. But that was the intention because I like the color of it. So they all exist on top of each other with lots of overlap. What's the next step? Well, the next step is to save it. So Command S. And now that I have everything towards the middle, I'm going to use my crop tool, and I'm not going to go right to the edges, but I'm going to go outside of it because I might want to actually make my composition a little bigger than my original sketch. As long as it's at least what my original parameters were, I know it meets requirements. But this will save some memory. I don't need all that desk space anymore. Right now, this is exciting. This is the minimum of where I want you to get today, right? Or I should put it this way, especially those of you really worried about deadlines. To stay on track to actually have kind of something near finished turned in by deadline, this is where you need to be at the start of class on Monday. At least this far, right? But what's the next step after this? You would think, if you know traditional collage, that the next step is to take like an X-Acto knife and really finely cut everything out. But because this is digital instead of traditional, we have a very useful step that you can't do with traditional collage. And that step is what's called direct adjustments. So you might notice that the lighting and the coloring does not match between these sources. So our goal is to make them match. So we do that by all these ones that I've marked with a color. I'm going to turn them all off until I get to the background. And then I'm going to rasterize that background. Because I didn't. It was still a smart object. This is what I'm using, these kind of clouds. I'm going to hit Command semicolon to hide the guides. And I'm just going to look at the beauty of that and say, is that what I want? How do I know? Because I have this power. I can go to Image Adjustments, and there are 3 direct adjustments, which you get to under Image Adjustments that I want you all to know. And we're going to be using them a lot. This is how we alter lighting, how we alter color. First is levels. That's the first adjustment. Everyone say levels. It's a weird word in your mouth, right? That's the only one we need for lights and darks. So when we use levels, we get a histogram. It shows us all of the pixels within a given layer or selection. And it allows us to use this mid-tone slider to either brighten the exposure or darken it. So that's the only thing I'm going to do here is play with that mid-tone slider and decide, do I want it brighter? Do I want it darker? Do I want it right where it was, which would be at 1? And I want it a little bit darker, a little bit moodier. I don't want to play with these sliders because what they do is blast it out. They replace your highlights with pure white or your shadows with pure black. And we want to keep all of that pixel information. But we shift the lighting lighter or darker. The other thing we can sometimes do is we can limit the parameters. So if I want this guy to be really moody, but I don't want that to be pure white, I can limit it so it starts at like 10% gray. And I never use this one because that just makes your darks brighter. But if you wanted to limit it from there, you could as well. All right, so that's levels. I can go back in my history and I can see the difference that made. That's the first adjustment you do. The second, and you always do both of these. These are non-negotiables. Adjustments, color balance. We're in a room right now lit by yellow fluorescence. So this is a warm light temperature. Color balance changes the temperature of your lighting. So right now, this is a really interesting, there's pinks, there's oranges, there's blues. I can play first with the midtones, and I can say, what if we mix more magentas into that color temperature? What if we mix more blues into it? What if we mix more reds? Because I want something colorful and cartoonish, but maybe that's too magenta. Maybe I want to go the other way towards the greens. Maybe I want to play with the highlights and make those warmer. Maybe I want to play with the shadows and make those cooler. So these are subtle color shifts. And that's what's going to help make all of our photo reference match. Levels and color balance. So let's look what it looked like before that and now after. A lot moodier, right? And I'm liking that. Now, the third one, because I said there are 3 direct adjustments I need you to know. Levels, color balance, now hue saturation, which is also a color slider, but a very different type. This is for big color shifts. The hue is the spectrum of the color. So right now it lies on one place within the visible spectrum. If I just want to shift that, I can make it